Hi, this is Yu, and this is the TA of Creative Coding. I'm going to talk about how we can use P5.js to do some basic shapes, strokes, and also fills in the open processing website. So you can use open processing to create a new sketch. A new sketch contains two parts. One is setup, one is draw. Setup means that you only run this code once, like you are like a painter. You set width and height, your size of the canvas, and then you give it a background color like gray at all. So after that, if you put something in draw function will run like 30 times a second. So you can imagine that if you move these circles around, and it will create like 30 circles per second based on your current mouse position. So in this case, if we want to change our ellipse color, we can use fill. Fill allows you to use one number, three numbers, or even four numbers. But how to know this? You can find it on P5.js website, and you can find a reference, give it like fill, and see that, oh, fill, if you give it 1, it'll be grayscale from 0 to 255. And if you give it 3, it'll be like RGB. But how can we get the exact color of that? We can use a plugin called Color Picker. So if I want a color, a red color, we can get the RGB of that 242, 26, and 76. Okay, so after we assign this fill, all the things after this line will be like that fill. So we can draw an ellipse with red color, and we draw another ellipse. So we copy this line and we draw at mouse x plus 50. So now we have two circles at a time. And then you might want to ask that, how can we add a background and remove those messy circles? Just left the one with our mouse. So in this case, you can think like you are a painter. Every time you paint on the wall, you have to remove all the things with a background color. Like we can give it background color 100 before we draw those ellipses. So you can see that there's two ellipses following our mouse, but the theory behind it is actually if you give it like 30 of opacity, you will get a trace of those circles, because every time we erase those circles, we didn't erase it completely. We erase it with a little opacity, so we can see the trace of those circles. Okay, so the next step is, how can we change the radius of those shapes? If we want our radius to change within time, like every time we draw with a little bigger radius. So we have to record that number inside our program. How to record that? We use variables. Variables are like box, like var radius equals to 100, and we give this radius, it's like a box. So whenever you use radius, this word this word will point to this place, and P5.js will check for what is the exact value in that radius box. And we can even change that every time we draw. So if we radius plus equals 1, that means we plus 1 to radius and put it back to the radius box. So you can see that whenever we're drawing, it's getting bigger, because every time we draw a circle, we increase the radius. So it's kind of fun. If you didn't remove that, like if you use background, you didn't refill the background, we can see all the trace along the road. Okay, so how can we change the color also based on time? We have a very useful variable in the system. Now you don't have to define it, but you can use it. It's called frame count. Frame count is a number. Whenever you run draw, it automatically increase 1. So if you give frame count to the RGB, the blue component of that field, you can give that frame count, and we can see, oh, is it changing? Yeah, it's getting more blue during the process, and it's getting purple. So what's happening in the background? We can print out that console.log frame count to see the result of what is frame count. So you can see that there's 40, 60, 80, 90, 100, and the frame count is keep increasing. So that means our blue component in that color is increasing too. Then we do another one because our color value are only valid when it is between 0 and 255. So we have to like do something for that frame count. Once it exceeds 255, we get the rest of the number of 255. So we mod 255, and we also print out that mod 55 result. So now the blue is still increasing, and you can see that it's over 160, 180, 200. And once it exceeds 255, it will come back to 0 again because we just remove all the part above 255. Okay, so that's how you can use variables and frame count to draw over time. And you can also use frame count to like increase the width of the rectangle. So it's a very useful variable. Like you can also draw a rectangle based on mouse X and mouse Y. And we have a stroke and give it like, we want a stroke with green color. So we use color picker to pick up green. And then we get the RGB value of that. Okay, so we have a green stroke, and we assign stroke weight to 50. It'll be a very thick stroke. So whatever you draw after this rectangle, it'll contain a stroke. So they all have a stroke, and we cannot see the rectangle, even the ellipse have the rectangle, because that we forget to reset it. How to reset those things before we draw? We can like just give it no stroke after we draw that rectangle. So the next time it run back to that ellipse, it will not like affect or give the ellipse the stroke. So we can see that there's no stroke because our rectangle is without width and height. And we'll give it a little thinner line. Okay, so now you can see that I have a rectangle with stroke. And if we increase this mouse X, we replace the height of the rectangle with frame count divided by 2, or just frame count. It'll be very obvious that whenever my frame count increase, it will also increase the height of the rectangle. So it's fun, and you can play around it. So that's how you can draw basic shapes in P5.js, assigning their colors, assigning their stroke. Those comments are like a list of comments. So whatever you change, like stroke or fill in front of your drawing function, like ellipse or rectangle, it'll just change all the things afterward. So you have to reset it every time before you draw that shape. And this enables us to keep the settings between different drawings. So if we want to just keep the fill, but I don't want to keep the stroke, we can just change the fill afterward. But we are using the same stroke as same as the previous setting. We draw the previous shape. So this is the basic shape drawing part of P5.js. If you do not like, you're not familiar with P5, you're not sure what this command can use, what should we give them the parameters, you can just search for rectangle, and you can get that, oh, when you give 4, that means location xy, and width and height, the size of the rectangle. And if we give it like 5 numbers, P5 will get it like it is width and height, and then it's position, width and height, and the last number will be the radius of the corner. And if you give it like 8 numbers, it'll be like it's width and position, width and height, and 4 corners, they have different radius. So that's how you can draw basic shapes in P5.js, and we will talk about how to improve those drawing function, or how to let those drawing comment will not affect each other's method using push and pop, and maybe talk about a little about canvas translation. So thank you for listening. This is P5.js Creative Coding TA Cho, and hope you have a nice week. Bye bye.